Hey guys, it's next here. In today's video, we are going to be looking at is Wayland ready again, or the part 2 series of this, because I originally made a video and I said, is Wayland ready as a daily driver in 2024? And before this video starts, definitely give it a like and definitely subscribe to the channel. I would definitely appreciate it. And I made this video over 7 months ago. And also, if you don't notice, I do have a green screen set up. Someone did ask about it in the comments and I was like, well, I actually do have a green screen. I just need a good light. So I did find a good light and now we're going to try this out. But besides that, as you see, I made a video about Wayland, is it ready in 2024 over 7 months ago. And this past 7 months, Wayland has been improving rather quickly, I would say, with a lot of improvements on different desktop environments and tiling managers. Like, KD Plasma has worked a ton on Wayland on trying to transition to a Wayland desktop first with Plasma 6. And with GNOME, they've always defaulted to Wayland on Fedora based distros. So they've always tried to be a Wayland first, even if it's not ready, but they have been trying to work on it a little bit also, with some features taking a little bit longer, but usually GNOME comes out on top most of the time when it comes to their features, even if it takes quite a little bit of time for those features to arrive. And so we're going to be going over just some of the features that are left when it comes to what is going to be merged soon, and then also the features in this video, things that I pointed out that were not implemented, and seeing if those are implemented now. Yeah, just the whole state of, is Wayland ready, coming to the end of 2024 after 7 months of this video. So one of the first features that I introduced into this video, I'm pretty sure, was about Discord and Chrome, but the first one's about Discord, and that is screen sharing on Wayland isn't supported yet in the default desktop version of Discord. When it comes to the web version of Discord, it is supported because of the Chromium devs implementing a proper Wayland sharing feature in the actual browser. So Discord just uses that, so that already works properly. But when it comes to the desktop side of Discord, you can't screen share with Wayland by default on the desktop version. I'm going to specify that very much, the desktop version, not a web version, not a web version like VESKTOP or anything, which is the solution I'm going to bring up in a moment, but you can't screen share with Wayland on the desktop version of Discord yet. And there's been tons of posts about this in the feedback thing, and it's gotten tons of upvotes. I know that there's one that's been open for almost 4 years or something, and it has over 1,000 upvotes in the feedback, and tons of hundreds, probably hundreds of comments of people asking for this to be brought over, and Discord has simply ignored it because, well, Wayland hasn't really been the default when it comes to Linux, and Linux market share is rather low. So the solution is to use something like VESKTOP, which is a custom Discord application that, I gotta specify here, does void the TOS of Discord. So there's always a chance that you might get banned or suspended on Discord for using this application because it uses mods. By default, there isn't any mods enabled, I'm pretty sure. So if you don't use any mods of VESKTOP, you should be fine. But the good thing about this is it has its own API for screen sharing on Wayland with sound. And also, if you have an AMD GPU card, you can do VARP encoding, which is hardware acceleration when you are screen sharing. So if you're playing a video game or something, when it comes to the performance side, you won't lose so much performance when screen sharing because of that hardware acceleration being enabled on an AMD GPU. So that isn't really a Wayland problem, as I've stated with the Discord problem video that I made. The tools that are used are already in place. The XGD desktop portal that is used for screen sharing, that's already ready. The pipewire that we use in VESKTOP with their own API, that works properly with sound, and then pipewire is used for video also, and for zero copy hardware acceleration. So all the stuff is already ready. So that's more of a Discord problem, not really a Wayland problem, because Wayland isn't really the problem here. It's more of a Discord problem that they need to solve. But one of the other things that I did state in this video was about, I'm sure it was screen tearing. And screen tearing on the KD Plasma desktop, and maybe some tiling managers that are based on some Wayland compositor, do support the screen tearing protocol. So when it comes to full screen tearing and full screen games, that does work on Plasma 6.2 now. They decided to implement it, and it actually does work now. There is a button here in the display monitor that does do screen tearing. So I'm pretty sure some games don't detect screen tearing properly, and one way to solve that, if you want every game to be teared, you can use Go Overlay with Mango HUD and force it in here. If we go to performance and go to VSync, we can go to Vulkan and we can turn it to off, which means that if if we look at this box here that spawns and we stretch this open, we can see that the present mode is immediate, which means that it's going to send the frames as fast as possible. That may introduce tearing. So you add that, and then you add the tearing in the Plasma desktop, you'll get screen tearing on every single game that is using Vanguard, instead of the game having to figure out if it wants to tear or not. Now, one of the next big things that people have been waiting for, and you can actually already use this if you want to, if you are a tester, you want to test something out that's a bit more bleeding edge or experimental, you can actually test this out right now. But one of the features that we have all been waiting for when it comes to the gaming side or software side is, well, trying not to run things through X11 or Wayland, which is you're running an X11 window and it's being translated to a Wayland window in a sense. And so Wine is one project that has been using Wayland for quite a while now, and there hasn't been many issues, I would say, when it comes to running games through Wayland. There's no real big issues, either it be performance or memory issues. There's a bit higher memory, like a little bit. Like you can watch benchmarks and the memory's just a little bit high, maybe like 100 megabytes or 200 megabytes, or maybe 50 megabytes higher on average, maybe on some of the games. But Wine is, they've been trying to merge Wayland support. So then the games, the software that we run through Wine are going to be through a Wayland window. And for the most part, I heard that one of the Wine developers say that it is mostly ready. They have the majority of things implemented with only a couple of things left. If we go to the open section, we can see the rest of the Wayland merge requests. There might be a couple more that I can't see because they don't have the Wayland in it at all, but maybe it is somewhere in the comments, so like that's something that needs to be merged. But we can see there's only 10 open currently, so it seems like it should be around when Proton rebases to Proton 10, which rebases from Wine 10. I think Wayland should be ready by then, which is next year sometime, like close to middle of the year. Proton will rebase to Wine 10, and then you guys will be able to use, and me also, will be able to use Wayland by default in Proton, and or like some custom Wine runner that you're trying to use. Now, one big one that is slowly happening. It's taking a while for this to be merged because of one desktop environment that wants to really think about it really hard. And that's about global shortcuts with the XG desktop portal. And it's the one solution to using shortcuts on your desktop environment. Now, KD Plasma, they already have this implemented. You can go into settings right now and go to shortcuts, and you can set up a shortcut key with an application. Like, for example, GPU screen recorder supports this. I know the developer implemented shortcuts into this with Wayland, so you can change hotkeys, for example. And then if we search on change hotkeys, we see it brings up, it said it created its own little shortcut as a system service, and then we can change the default shortcut. And this is through the portal, and it works perfectly. I have no issues when it comes to if I'm in a game and I trigger that to do a pause or unpause or start or stop recording. So it's really good, I would say. And it could be something that's used for Discord, for example. They would have to implement this so then the desktops can use it properly. But yeah, there's one desktop environment that still hasn't implemented it, which is the GNOME project, or the GNOME desktop environment. It's coming along slowly. There's no milestone for what version it should be released at, but as you can see, there's a decent amount of talking going on. There's a decent amount of commits, I'm pretty sure. Mentioned some commits of things happening. And then this is actually the merge request, I'm pretty sure, for one of them. And as you can see, it has been rebased. There's more conversations, more little issues that they're experiencing to try and fix. So when it comes to when this will arrive, I don't know. There's no milestone. Maybe the next release of GNOME, which is around like 5 months and like, I don't know, 20 something days away. But hopefully this gets merged so then applications can use the global shortcuts, and then people won't be mad when it comes to certain applications and they're not able to use any type of shortcuts. Like, for example, Discord, you can't really use shortcuts in Discord. You can on KD Plasma if you use the X11 option, which is in the application permission. It's called the Legacy X11 app support. So there is a way around this, kind of, depending if the app is running through Wayland. But if it's just using Wayland, you're not able to use the global shortcuts in any type of way necessarily. You probably can set up some type of like script or something to try and get around it. But for this, hopefully this will get merged. Now, one of the good things about what has happened, what I said in this video, was about Nvidia and how there was certain features like explicit sync was one that didn't work on their Nvidia driver, or the Wayland protocol wasn't merged for it yet, because I'm pretty sure we used implicit sync, just a way that interacts with hardware and the compositor. And so on AMD, there was no issues because they supported implicit sync. Well, Nvidia didn't support any of them, so there was tons of issues with Nvidia GPUs running under Wayland. But since then, we had the 555 driver that came out a couple months ago that had the explicit sync support. So you could actually use Wayland now at a good capacity necessarily, even though there's some little features that are missing, that, like, for example, VRR with multi-monitors. That is something that is coming in the next driver release, but for right now, it's not included. So there's like some little features missing, and the Nvidia developers did do a pretty big post, and I really enjoy seeing Nvidia actually post things about like what they want to do, what they want to improve for the Wayland side of their driver, because it's really important that they do improve these things instead of not telling anyone, and then everyone gets confused and annoyed and everyone gets angry at Nvidia. But it's really good. They posted this, and one of the things that like they still need to improve on is mux switching with laptops. I know that's one thing they need to improve for some reason, because of like how Wayland interacts with like different GPU setups and CPU and GPU, iGPU setups and laptops. It can be a bit confusing of how it does it. So then there's little issues that appear. And so Nvidia is trying to improve this with their drivers. The other one, like I said, the multi-monitor VRR on Wayland is an upcoming release. They're trying to set different parameters, because if you don't know, you need to set up different parameters in your either in your system D bootloader or your grub bootloader, whatever bootloader that you're using. You need to set up different parameters to get the maximum performance out of your GPU. So they're going to try and work on these so then they can be set up by default, because they have issues right now. If you try to set them manually, that you may have like little issues. So they're trying to work on improving this and enabling these, the Nvidia DRM FB dev equals 1 parameter, and then the mode set one, which I know is a very popular one to set. Try and set that by default. And then like some other like color properties they want to improve on, improve the DRM presentation timing information, or actually introduce the presentation timing information, or things like VDPAU support on Wayland or the vGPU support on Wayland. And they talk over things that maybe things that can't get implemented, like some things in the control panel they can't do because of like some X11 limitation with the control panel. So they can't use the thing that they're using on X11, they can't use it on Wayland. So it's like a bit of a mixture. But when it comes to Nvidia actually working on Wayland, like you can use Nvidia on Wayland. Sure, you may have some other little issues if you try to set it up manually in a sense on some distros, but if you're like using like Nabara or Fedora or some Debian gaming distro or something, then Nvidia will work probably extremely well and you won't really have any issues. It's more just some little features that are missing, but again, that is an Nvidia issue, not a Wayland issue. Nvidia needs to introduce VRR multi-monitors. They need to improve their mux switching. Like on AMD, I could use VRR multi-monitors just fine under Wayland. I'm using it right now and it works perfectly fine. So hopefully, Nvidia can improve that. And now we are going to go into some of the other applications that haven't moved over to Wayland yet, either because of certain problems or delays in someone actually wanting to work on the project to improve certain things. So then other applications can bring in Wayland support. And one is the Steam client. If you don't know, Steam runs through Wayland. So X11 translated to Wayland. Now there isn't any major problems with this. I think everything works properly within the application, but when it comes to Wayland support, this would be really good for something like home streaming, because that's the one thing that decides to not work properly, is when you try to use the remote play thing. So when you stream your game or your display to another device, that has issues when you try to run it under Wayland. Now there is a fix for it. You can add a dash pipewire parameter to the Steam application, and that will fix it a little bit. Depends on your hardware. So like for me, when I tried to add that parameter, when I tried to actually do remote play, my UI won't work properly in certain games. So like if I launch a certain game, I won't be able to see that game for some reason. It'll just be a black screen. Well, the UI of the actual remote play will work. So it's a bit of a weird issue where the Steam client needs to switch over to Wayland if you want the the remote play to actually work properly under Wayland. And the big blocker here for Steam not transitioning to Wayland is a Chromium issue or Chromium merge request that needs to be merged into Chrome so then Steam can actually transition over to Wayland. And if you don't know what this is, it's a type of framework that is used on lots of applications. Like, I'm pretty sure OBS Studio with their browser docs, that uses CEF. Steam uses CEF. Discord, I'm pretty sure, also may even use the Chromium framework from Electron. A lot of companies, a lot of software depend on this framework, and without certain Wayland features being merged into this, those applications won't move over to Wayland because of those missing features. So if we have a look here, this is this big issue here on the CEF page of GitHub that says, add support for embedded Ozone/Wayland windows. Now we add the embedded zone so then the application can figure out what one you're running, either it be X11 or Wayland, so then it can decide if it wants to choose Wayland or X11 depending on the desktop environment or tiling manager that you have. And this isn't merged. I don't think, at least in CEF, it's not merged. So as you can see, 3 weeks ago, there was one comment asking there is a fallback for the GTK, nor QT is available. So there is some little issues left. And there was one developer here who said that he would work on it a little bit, but he was going on vacation. So it's a lot of issues that need to be worked on for Steam to be able to actually move over to Wayland. I bet this won't happen till like a year later if I had to guess, because Steam probably doesn't want to move that quickly on newer Chromium versions to update the CEF framework. And same goes for something like OBS Studio or something like Discord as well. But like with the home streaming issue, there is a solution. You can use Sunshine. Sunshine is a great application. Well, not Sunshine Australia, but Sunshine Home Streaming. You can find this website here. And this is an amazing application that you can use with Moonlight, and Moonlight is the GUI application that you would install on your phone or your laptop to connect to the computer, and then you can stream all your games and with controller support. So if you have a controller, you can plug it into that phone or laptop and it will stream all those inputs to the computer, and you can easily stream your games with Sunshine instead of having to use a broken type of streaming service on Steam's Remote Play. And then we go over another issue, which is about the OBS Studio browser dock. So there was an issue that was open that says custom browser dock window under Wayland is transparent. And what OBS had to do was disable it when you run OBS under Wayland. And to get the browser docs back, you need to force OBS to run under X Wayland. Now, there's no real issues with running it under X Wayland. You get the browser docs back, the browser docs behave properly, and there's no real big issues. But when it comes to actually getting the browser docs to run by default under Wayland, as you can see, that is the bug that I experienced. And it's because I'm pretty sure it's something to do with probably some other issues in this post that have actually to do with that issue that they're experiencing. But as you can see, they have to wait for CEF or the Chromium developers to provide support for Wayland, so then they can update to that version, and then they can enable Wayland support for the browser docs. And then there was one other issue that I did remember, which was some people were forcing Steam to run under Wayland, and one other issue that appeared was to do with the overlay. So the Steam overlay wasn't working properly when you force Steam under Wayland. And supposedly, Wayland doesn't support any type of overlay system, while X11, it does. It has for a while, probably because of how just like open X11 is, like how you can kind of just do whatever the hell you want with X11. So it's able to just work with that. But on Wayland, it's a bit more secure. So it doesn't have the ability to do that right now. Now, I did hear from one of the GPU screen recorder developers that he making a new UI for GPU screen recorder. And he said around here that it only works under X11 at the moment. And I think pretty sure it was to do with this YouTube video that he showed off. He explained that Wayland is a work in progress because of something that needs to be merged for overlays to work properly. He said, note, this UI only works on X11 at the moment because Wayland doesn't support full screen overlays and likely never will. The UI will have an option to display it differently in the future, which will be compatible with Wayland. So there'll be some type of option that he's going to implement that is going to be compatible with Wayland. For right now, it only works on X11. And when it comes to full screen overlays, it's probably never going to work on Wayland because of how Wayland, I guess, is designed and how the developers thought of how Wayland could be. That's a bit of like a privacy issue, I'm guessing, for full screen overlays. So that's something that may not be implemented, but there's going to be something else where there'll be like a UI option to display it differently in the future that will actually be able to support it. So either that's going to be an option with Steam, or the Wayland developers are going to have to figure out a way to allow a full screen overlay to work in a rather privacy friendly way. Now, another one I did talk about was about HDR, more like the color management protocol that needs to be merged into Wayland. Color management is something that's been worked on for quite a while now, which is just like color management and HDR. And the KD Plasma desktop team, they do have HDR supported, and it does work. My monitor I'm using right now is my main monitor, does have HDR working, but it doesn't work like everywhere, and you have to use certain tools to get HDR working. Like if you want HDR in a game, you need to use GameScope, and you need to enable a HDR environment variable in the GameScope launch command, or you need to be in the Steam Deck UI interface to use HDR, which is really easy. There's just like a tick or something, a switch you just turn on, and then HDR will work because it's in a GameScope session. But it is something that the Wayland developers are working on, and it's a draft for staging repo. So staging repo, that's going to take a while to get put into, because I know staging is like, there's going to be a lot of talk about it. And as you can see here, the different implementations for Mutter, which is GNOME, Western, Kwin. As you can see, if you look at Kwin for some reason, this is the version 4 of color management. So it was merged in 6.2, and then when we look at GNOME, as you can see, they also did merge the color protocol for sRGB in PQ plus BT 2020. So when it comes to HDR, GNOME, they are still working on it. This is the kind of like the introduction to the color management protocol. They don't actually have HDR working in the Mutter compositor, or if you're running like, I guess, like Western on some tiling manager that is like based off Western, you know, like, or like testing or something like that, then you can use HDR. It's just you're gonna have to use certain tools to do it. Either be you need to use MPV for watching video content with HDR, which you're gonna need a terminal for that, or you need to use GameScope, which you need to learn the launch commands for whatever game you're launching, and you need to enable the HDR environment variable. But for my guess, at some point when all of this is done, which I hope that it's done within like a year from now, that we can just use HDR. It will be auto detected when you launch a game. Proton will just, you know, enable HDR properly, or if you're enabling, like you're watching a video or something that you have on your storage, that you can just use HDR automatically. But as we can see here, the GNOME project is working on a HDR support within the Mutter compositor. They do have a open merge request here of all the documentation of trying to get HDR working and the different phases that they are going to go through. So as we can see, phase 1, they've merged the passing HDR and color imagery, that's been merged. There is a couple other things here that need to be worked on that do have open merge requests, and as you can see, phase 2, there hasn't been any merge requests that have been opened for any of that. So it's still a rather work in progress, I would say. And I think the best thing about Wayland developing moving faster recently is all thanks to Valve's developers from the Mesa group. They proposed to add an experimental protocol. So the experimental protocol is lower than staging, which means that the protocols or the features that we want in Wayland could be moved into the experimental branch, which means they'll be moved in quicker, and desktop environments or tiling managers, different Wayland compositors can merge those protocols quicker, and then the users can experience those features quicker and enjoy a better time under a Wayland desktop environment or tiling manager. So I would say after 7 months, there has been a lot of development, and there's still a decent amount of things that need to be improved. I was talking a lot about Discord and Chrome, which is still true. The OBS Studio browser docs, which is still true. The VARPy thing I was talking about, I don't know. I think that was about Discord screen sharing or like OBS. That's all fine. The screen tearing, that's mostly solved as it's merged in KD Plasma. It's just up to other desktop environments or other tiling managers if they want to implement that. And then the Steam and home streaming thing, that's still an issue, but that can be solved. And then the Nvidia problem, well, the explicit sync thing is merged, so you can use the Nvidia driver under Wayland and have a decent time. Just some things like VR multi-monitors are still being worked on, laptop improvements under Wayland is still being worked on, and hopefully with newer drivers, Nvidia will improve, which I'm pretty sure they're going to, since they did post a very long blog post, which you can go read. I'll leave it down in the link description if you want to go read it. And then HDR, that's still being worked on, and it has been improved a ton. Like KD Plasma, for example, they have been improving HDR a ton. So my conclusion is that, yeah, there is a lot of things that have been improved. There's a lot of things that still need to be worked on, and most of it's got to do with like Chromium development, and there's no real person that has the encouragement or the power to really actually work on it. So if there is any developers watching this video, I would definitely go check out the CEF issues with Wayland and see if you can improve it at all, as I'm not a developer. So even though I'm like saying this is an issue, it's not really an issue for me personally. Like I said, those things can be solved. You can force things under X Wayland. It's no real big problem for me specifically, but I know there's other people that would like these applications to support Wayland properly by default. And yeah, so if you guys did enjoy this video, definitely give it a like, definitely subscribe to the channel, definitely tell me about this whole green screen setup we have going on right now. I'd really like to know your thoughts on it. It's really janky currently, I would say. My light that I have here is about to fall over because of the cord is too short, so it's like dragging itself. But yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video, hopefully, of Wayland Part 3, which we'll see, like 7 months time. 7 months time, we'll see how Wayland has improved. I'll make another part 3 of how Wayland has improved, and that'll be in 2025, so we'll see what Linux has become then. But yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace. Alright. Green screen. Pretty cool.